Hello and welcome back to Talk the Bay. I'm your host, PK Haddis. When was the last time you ran your weekend errands without getting behind the wheel of a car? How about commuting to work? Or even a trip to the beach? It's not easy in our modern world to get around without a personal four-wheeler, but that hasn't stopped Santa Cruz County transportation leaders from challenging the public to give it a shot. We're on day 3 of the county's inaugural Week Without Driving campaign, and we're fortunate to be joined on today's show by one of the architects of the initiative, Santa Cruz Metro Board Chair Rebecca Downing. Rebecca, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So, as I mentioned, we are in the thick of it, day 3, I believe, of the inaugural Week Without Driving campaign. Before we get into what the campaign actually is, maybe we can kind of illustrate it by what's actually been happening these past 3 days. Could you just describe for us like what you've been up to? I know there's some big kickoff events and things like that.
Yeah, it's been a busy beginning of the week, which started on Monday at 7:30 at the Scotts Valley Transit Center, where the City of Scotts Valley council members and County Supervisor Monica Martinez and some Metro staff, we rode the bus. We rode the 34S, which is a new route that can get kids to Scotts Valley High. So it was a new route. We rode down to the Transit Center in Santa Cruz, and Mayor Tim, who had put his bike on the bus, got off to go to an appointment in Santa Cruz, and then the rest of us caught the other bus as it went back.
Right, so we have our elected officials trying to lead by example.
Yes, and also, as I've said to them, think about what if you had to do this every day. What obstacles, how much planning. We started to have some rain this week, and it's like, okay, well, if I'm driving, I'm inconvenienced. But if I weren't, it would involve a lot more planning.
Right. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but I'm getting the sense, something I've heard from you before, that this event is, kind of as much, if not more, for our elected officials as it is for the public. So I definitely want to discuss that more. Tell us about what the initiative actually is. Just give us your pitch. I know you played a big role in bringing it about, if not the pivotal role in bringing it about. So tell us about that.
I use my gavel as chair this year.
Right,
yes.
Right. It's a powerful gavel.
It started in Washington State, and I think that was in, I want to say, 2021 by a disabled group who wanted people to understand what they had to face every day. And then it went national in 2023, and I somehow found them that year, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sign up. It's going to be awesome. I drove every day. It was just, I had my car, I had to haul things around and go outside of the area. So what I told myself that week, and what I can tell drivers this week, is slow down, look up, and when you see people along the road, just give them the space and time they need to get where they need to go. It's pretty simple.
Right. And so that's another kind of theme of this whole event, which is, try your best. It's okay if it doesn't work out perfectly.
Driving is not failure, because if you're a driver, you can still advocate for these infrastructure improvements for pedestrians, because if you have to drive because you don't have that infrastructure near your house, well, then you can advocate for it. And then you actually get to choose whether or not you're going to drive. And sometimes you say, okay, I don't want to deal with parking, so I'm going to take the bus. And it'll take me maybe 5-10 minutes longer, but I won't have to look for parking at the other end. I don't have to worry about getting home and traffic or any of that. So the farther out you can push that pedestrian infrastructure, the easier it is for drivers to say, okay, I'm going to go with it this time. And we do that sometimes when we travel. We think, okay, we're in the big city, we're going to take transit, and we don't even think about it. So the other thing, too, that's important for drivers to understand is that by advocating for pedestrian improvements, it once they're in place, it trains us as drivers to take care of pedestrians. And a good example of that is the Soquel Drive Congested Corridor project, because now there are barriers between the bikes and the cars and the side. There was broken sidewalk. There was no sidewalk in some places. But now that that's there, I notice people aren't speeding as much, And it just feels a lot calmer for everyone. And that makes it less stressful for pedestrians and, of course, drivers, too.
Right. So what are some of the modes of transit that have been recommended for this week-long initiative? Is it just like, hey, whatever you can do to not get in a car, or is that okay? Maybe carpooling is one of them. Tell us about some of like the things that have worked for people.
Well, carpooling certainly works. I don't think that word is used anymore. We do like rideshare or whatever. But
right.
Carpooling. My husband drives a hill, and he has carpooled many times in the past. And so obviously you're still in a car, but there's two of you, and that's one less car on the road. We've recommended a lot of people to try transit. We've been expanding service with Reimagined Metro, so we've encouraged people to ride the bus. A lot of people have bikes. One of the city council folks here in Santa Cruz, Shebra Kalantari Johnson, she's trying to go the whole week. She's got a day where it's not going to work, but she went on a bike ride on Monday with the new infrastructure over at Gateway School, and she said, it's just so much less stressful trying to deal with vehicular traffic when you have these safety measures in place. And then a lot of people walk. And, if it's within a certain, like Marianne's is within walking distance of my house in Seacliff. So,
Nice
we kind of have to walk there to earn the ice cream. But, there's a lot of people that have scooters and, those skateboards. We don't care, but when you think about the amount of space a skateboarder takes up or a cyclist compared to a car, it's a lot. And when you're driving and you see all those people, or you even see like 10 people on a bus, you think, well, 10 people on the bus, it's like that's 10 cars that aren't in your way. And it's something to just kind of remember when you're driving.
Right. It's hard to forget, actually, if you're a Highway 1 commuter in rush hour traffic or really any time of the day. You can think about a bus full of people and think, hey, maybe that's the future and we won't be sitting in this traffic. Okay, how about resources like that? As organizers of this event, Santa Cruz Metro, maybe you could name some of the others, but tell us about what are some of the resources or sort of, opportunities for folks to kind of share their work in a way that have been stood up this week, that further incentivizes it.
Well, we're asking everybody that does anything to post it on social media with the hashtag Week Without Driving. For us putting on the event, it was Santa Cruz Metro, the County Community Development and Infrastructure Department, and the Community Traffic Safety Coalition. And I'm now co-chair of that. So Kelly Curlett, Tiffany Martinez, and Daniel Glagola, we were sort of this four-headed monster putting on the event that happened yesterday. I took it upon myself to work on other components because they all work full-time, and this was just what they did yesterday was phenomenal. I don't know how they did it. I was just so grateful. It was very heartfelt yesterday. It was wonderful because we had elected official representatives. We received a state proclamation, and the leaders of our different transit and transportation agencies all spoke. And I think that one of the things that I did was I enlisted elected officials. I went to every supervisor and said, okay, what are you going to do? And they're all doing it their way. Like Monica wrote on Monday. They're busy folks. So this morning, Mayor Orozco from Watsonville and Council Member Jimmy Dutra joined Supervisor Hernandez and some of our board members and staff and our CEO, Corey Aldrich, and we rode Route 78 in Watsonville. It's a new loop that takes people over to Westridge Drive where they have all these new county buildings and things. That didn't exist a few years ago. So that route's really, really important.
Let's hold for a second on the point that we brought up right off the top, which is really the emphasis on elected officials participating. I know that there's a challenge to the public, but a lot of what you've been talking about now is elected officials, and you have been in their ear about this, letting them know, trying to get them to commit to it. Why is that so important for them to experience this week without driving, to explore alternative forms of transportation?
Right. We've been encouraging them to do this because it's firsthand experience. We all know somebody that doesn't drive. either by choice or they have no choice. They just physically cannot. And when I first joined the Metro Board, I went on a ride with Paracruz, and just the challenges of getting people in and out of a van. I mean, if you're that person, your whole day is spent just trying to make sure you get where you need to go. And it's an eye-opening experience for a board member, but if you're also an elected official, you can say, okay, I took a bike ride, and that was scary because there was no bike lane here, and the cars went really fast. And so when it's time to vote for funding for some of these road projects, you can say, hey, what about the pedestrians? We need to make sure there's funding for them, because cars will go as fast as they let themselves do it, and you just pretty much have to set down the speed limit, narrow the lanes. We've seen that in various parts of the county. When they do that, everybody kind of goes, okay, I'll slow down, because there's a physical barrier. And that physical barrier actually creates that awareness that, okay, there's going to be pedestrians around here. And when you're elected official, you now know, because you took that walk or you took that bike ride, or, just getting off a bus and trying to walk to your car. You might have to walk down the street, and if there's, no sidewalk, then you say, okay, well, there's no sidewalk here, so we got to throw that into the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the Paracruz example, which is Metro's service,
mm-hmm.
right?
Is.
For folks with disabilities to help them get around town. Is that right?
Correct.
And that is, you mentioned this, that the inspiration for this initiative came from, I think you said, Washington State, and it was from the disabled community.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So again, it's kind of like increasing that awareness of not just how you, let's say you're an able-bodied person who still drives a car a lot, but it's just kind of anyone can participate just by increasing awareness, stepping in others' shoes for a while.
Take a walk with someone who's in a wheelchair. So on a personal note, my younger brother spent his whole life in a wheelchair, and he went to Chico State. Mm-hmm. He was hit 3 times by cars when he lived there. He didn't die from any of that. It was something else.
Goodness.
But somebody didn't look out for him, and he was shorter. He was in a chair. He was in a crosswalk. People didn't drive slowly enough or pay as much attention as they should have. So I think especially for people who cannot see, if you're blind and you're trying to cross the street, it's our job as drivers to say, okay, they need that space. We have this 3-foot law now with cyclists, and that's really hard to do in some places, but you just have to try if you can, because that cyclist will feel a little less stressed, trying to navigate some of those narrow roads.
If you're just joining us, you are listening to KSQD's Talk of the Bay, 89.5, 89.7, 90.7 FM. I'm your host, PK Haddis, and I'm joined today by Santa Cruz Metro Board Chair Rebecca Downing, who is the architect, I'll say it, of the Week Without Driving campaign here in Santa Cruz County that is having its inaugural year. It launched on Monday. Maybe actually we haven't covered that. You could give us the dates of
Sure.
the campaign.
So it's the 29th through October 5th. So we're just not even halfway through.
Okay.
And so we had bus rides on Monday, and then yesterday at the Capitola Mall we had our countywide celebration, and then today, this morning, the Watsonville City Council did their ride. Monday evening, the Regional Transportation Commission held a webinar teaching people how to use their online hazard report. Because
tell us more about that. Do you know much about?
So it's pretty easy. You go to the report and you fill it out, and if you've got a photo, it's even better.
What does that report serve? Is it just a resource for?
Right. So what I often do is if I see something along the road that's like, okay, the sidewalk is broken or whatever it is, whatever hazard the person using it sees, I often take a photo of it, and then if you can, and then when you go to the form, there's categories to fill out, and there's ways you can describe what it is and upload a photo if you can. And they recorded the webinar, so they're going to start using that online to help people. I think they might even put it on their page, because it's not that, I don't think everybody knows about it, and sometimes it's a little cumbersome, so they're trying to make it just a little bit more accessible for everybody. So that information when you submit that report. They will determine based on where it is, what it is, who needs to fix that, because we have city roads, we have county roads, we have state roads. And so each, municipality or agency is the one to take care of that. So they pass that along to the appropriate agency to fix.
Mm-hmm. Right. We do live in a big network of converging jurisdictional territory, especially when it comes to transportation. So that's a great resource. Thanks for mentioning that. I want to ask for what your response is. I'm sure you've encountered a lot of folks, some of them I'm sure elected officials, who have said, look, it simply isn't possible for me to, maybe I can do it for a day, half a day, but my lifestyle, and rightfully so, some folks, they live in Watsonville and they need to commute to the very edge of Santa Cruz every day, and waking up an hour and a half, 2 hours early to take a bike ride down. Yeah, I mean it's you can see how this is a real challenge for some people. So what's been your response to them when they voice those concerns? They want to participate, but they simply just feel like they can't.
Well, as I mentioned before, driving isn't failing. It's just a way to participate. You would like to do one trip or one day, whatever you can manage. But when you're, if I used to live in Watsonville, work on the west side, and I would get up and get to work by 7. And one of our Metro board members, their car isn't working right now, so they're taking the bus from Watsonville to UCSC every day. And I'm sure that people that are driving who have their car and it runs, they're just very grateful. And a lot of those folks are just trying to put food on the table and pay their rent. So this type of action is something that, this is the first year. So we're just launching this year. And like I said, for drivers, I just want you to slow down, look up, get off the phone, don't hit the people in front of you. It's pretty simple. But like I said, when you have time, talk to your county supervisor, talk to your city council, just get to know people in government and say, hey, the intersection where we live, there's only stop signs on each side and people just come plowing through here. What can we do? And there are places that, unfortunately, we've had to wait for, traffic deaths to get attention put on those. And it's unfortunate, but we shouldn't have to wait. One of the challenges with putting Week Without Driving on in this county is that we're encouraged to do walk audits. So take a walk, write it all down, submit the hazard report. But we also know that we don't have a lot of funding for roads in our county, and it's tricky. You have to prioritize things. So anything you can do to bring that stuff to the attention of the county when they're working in your area, sometimes, a little striping or a crosswalk, is huge. We have a project in Seacliff. It's a downtown streetscape project, and it's been defunded because of other things. And so when I learned that, I called Public Works and said, can we just at least have this crosswalk here? Because this is where everyone crosses. They said, okay, we'll put that in the queue. And, within 6 months, not only did they put the crosswalk there, but they put it on the, the corner coming the other side. And it's just lovely because it sort of brings that awareness to drivers that are going down the street.
That's such a cool story, which I appreciate because it sort of demystifies the policymaking process. And you yourself are a policymaker as a someone on the Metro board, and in fact the chair of the Metro board, which is a really critical local transportation agency. And so, I think that's an important key part of this. I think you probably feel the same way, is demystifying the policy making process. Sometimes it's a simple complaint. Other times, tragically, a horrible accident happens and it brings attention and things can happen quickly. Government it famously moves slowly, but sometimes it can actually move quickly, right? Yes.
And one of the things that we learned in Seacliff, we're unincorporated. So, of course, we weren't getting our roads replaced very quickly. And thankfully, in 2016, we passed Measure D. So each one of the county districts gets a certain amount of funding, and that supervisor works with the community to figure out, what they're going to work on that time. And one of the nice things about that is, they'll say, well, the crew is out, they're going to be on this street. Oh, and they want something adjacent. So we'll go ahead and do this street, even though it wasn't on the list. So, they're working smart, not hard. They're just squeezing the dollars out of that. And it really helps to tell your supervisor or talk to Public Works about, hey, next time you're here, can you, maybe work on this? So they're not that scary. Before I was on the Metro board, I was that person trying to get to know everybody in Public Works, and they really do want to hear from people, even if they can't help you right away. They're still, I think that it demystifies how things get made when you just try to get to know the process. And so when people complain, I'll say, well, did you read this or did you read that? Because I think that it helps you understand how challenging it is to do some of these improvements, and how you just kind of have to step up for your community if you want things.
Well, speaking of projects getting done, you mentioned the Seacliff one that you were advocating for. You also mentioned the SoCal Drive project, which was a huge one. Any other, while we have you here, and since folks, maybe they're biking around and walking around, they might see some projects they're unaware of. Are there any transportation projects you want to kind of just lift up here on the radio for us that you're excited about, that have either come to fruition or maybe are in the works that Metro has in collaboration with others? Any that you want to highlight for us?
Sure. Well, obviously, we all watched the Whale Bridge go up, and that's made a huge difference. There's people that work over at Dominican in that direction that live in Live Oak that have, been able to ride their bikes, cuts their travel times way down. So that's one I think we can celebrate, along with this portion of the congested corridor work that's been done. I think it's up to State Park from, I want to say, Harbor High, not positive. And so in addition to the bike lanes and the sidewalk improvements, they're also synchronizing the stoplights. So if a Metro bus is approaching and it's going to turn red, it doesn't. So that bus can just get through, where it needs to go a little more quickly. And that's really useful. That helps to keep the buses on schedule, because people are counting on the buses to be there, when they can. And traffic gets a little bit hectic there on Highway 2. So
Right.
It can be challenging. Now that the Whale Bridge is finished, now they're working south of there to State Park. So you'll start to see a really important bridge go up, which is the Mar Vista pedestrian bridge. And when the highway was built, Seacliff got cut off. We actually got smaller because we used to be all the way up to SoCal Drive. And so when the freeway came through, Seacliff shrank. We lost our way to get over to SoCal Drive, except on the State Park Drive bridge. And if you've ever walked that bridge, it's really exciting. Do it once, you'll know. I mean, on 4th of July, we all just do it.
Right.
But that Mar Vista Bridge isn't just going to connect Seacliff to the rest of Aptos, but I can see people who walk that State Park Drive bridge now to go to the beach to do their beach walk in Seacliff. They're going to come over on that Mar Vista Bridge, and then there's a trail called the Beachgate Trail. It goes right down to the beach, and they'll just have a straight shot, so it'll be really, really nice for them.
Right, and a lot of these projects are really collaborative. Metro is working with the Regional Transportation Commission, who's working with the local jurisdiction, the county, the cities. It's really from the outside covering it and looking in, it seems like very much a group effort. We just have just a couple minutes here left, and I want to just expand the scope for a second, since we have you as Metro Board Chair here. I know this is a complicated question, and don't feel like you have to, give us a perfect answer.
Just say it, PK.
Tell us some things that make you feel optimistic about bus transportation, Metro, and then some of the challenges that are on the horizon. Could you just name a few of those for us?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now is the current administration and the fact that the government is shut down. So that I talked to our CEO about that this morning, and he says I think we're going to be okay. It's just the way the funding is for buses. We're fortunate because buses are a bipartisan issue, so that's a good thing as far as funding goes. I'm optimistic because we got some wonderful grants for buses and also affordable housing in the county. That was one of the goals with Reimagine Metro, was to expand service and create some affordable houses literally as part of the transit centers. So the challenge was we got some hydrogen buses, and it was a little controversial when we voted for that. And I think now it's starting to show up everywhere. I just saw a post from Namibia. They're just launching their first hydrogen buses.
Oh, wow.
And ours are starting, I think we have 6 or 10 now on the road. And once those are put in service, then we can destroy the million-mile-plus buses and get some payment from a VW what do you call it? A settlement that happened. But we couldn't do that until those buses were literally killed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's starting to work its way through. It was a little bit of a squeeze there because we had some really old buses. And we're hopeful that, putting these other new buses in place will be good. Plus, we just bought the property in Watsonville to rebuild the operations center down there that was lost in the earthquake.
No shortage of things happening at Santa Cruz Metro now and always. Thanks for tuning in. You have been listening to Santa Cruz Metro Board Chair Rebecca Downing. We've been talking about the inaugural Week Without Driving. Almost lost it for a second there. Real quick, where should folks go if they kind of need to tune in to this initiative?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you just Google Week Without Driving, just look it up on the internet, it'll take you to a place where you can learn more and sign up.
Excellent. All right, that has been KSQD's Talk of the Bay. I'm your host, PK Haddis. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.